Hey guys, welcome back to Any Narrates. Here we review stories that beautiful people like yourselves post on the internet. Today's story's title goes like this. A doll's stepdaughter demands that we take her with us on our honeymoon, and when my husband says no, she does this to my son to make us stay back. I had to call the cops. Hey everyone, so I'm in a crazy situation because of my stepdaughter right now. And I need to know if y'all think that I am in the right here or not. 3 weeks ago, I got married to Caleb, who's been with me for 2 years. I'm 35 and he's 42. He's been married before and has a daughter from his previous marriage, Kelly. She's 19, but she still lives with us. I also have a son, Alex, but I've never been married before. I had him with my ex-boyfriend. My son's turning 10 in a few days. He's a lot younger than Kelly. Kelly's a bit of a brat and has hated me right from the beginning. She's tried her very best to throw tantrums and get rid of me. But unfortunately, Caleb loves me too much to dump me over a few petty tantrums. He gave his daughter an ultimatum after the first few interactions that we had, which went really bad because of her behavior, and told her that she could either behave herself with me and be civil, or she can find another place for herself to live. Kelly chose to shut up and let us live peacefully, but I knew she still didn't like me. It didn't matter though, because at least now she was either civil to me, which was mostly whenever Caleb was around, or she would just ignore me. I've been living with Caleb for a year, and 8 months ago he proposed to me. I accepted, and when Kelly found out, she had a total meltdown about it. She said that it wasn't fair to her because she didn't want to have to deal with a stepmom at her age. I told her that she didn't have to treat me or even call me her stepmom, but she kept whining about how I'd never be able to replace her real mom. For context, her bio mom, Trisha, 42 female, is a struggling actor and has been trying to make it big in Hollywood since she was in her 20s, but hasn't succeeded yet. The most she's done so far is land roles as extras in a couple of films or play supporting characters in plays. She can't support her daughter financially yet, so Kelly doesn't live with her. Caleb, on the other hand, is a very successful and accomplished businessman, and that's how he's been supporting his adult daughter. She's an aspiring writer and has that creative streak in her, like her bio mom, but unfortunately, neither of them are particularly talented. Even if they were, I think it'd be impossible to hire them because of their nasty attitude, but that's just my opinion. Kelly wasn't too happy to learn that Caleb and I were engaged because she still believes that her parents have a chance of getting back together, even though they've been divorced for close to a decade. They got married at 21, a couple of months after they graduated, and then had Kelly 2 years later. At the time, both Caleb and Trisha were struggling with their respective careers, but at least something came out of Caleb's hard work. They had a lot of financial problems, and that was a major point of contention in their marriage, but none of it mattered anyway when Trisha confessed after 2 years of marriage that she slept with a director because he'd promised to cast her but hadn't. She'd begged Caleb to forgive her, but he didn't, and that's how the divorce happened. She still got partial custody after that, and has been able to raise her daughter to be just as delusional as her and make her believe that she still has a chance with Caleb. Kelly used to alternate living with them initially, but now that she's an adult, she'd moved in with Caleb permanently, but would still visit her mom often. He's told me that Kelly has terrorized all his exes in the past and they've dumped him because of his daughter, but I was the only one willing to even put up with Kelly's bad behavior for his sake. Caleb isn't really proud of himself as a father and thinks that he failed in raising Kelly to be a decent human being, but I don't think that's true. The girl has obviously been way more influenced by her mother, which is why she's turned out this way. My son's dad has never been in the picture, thankfully, and I've always been a single mom. He'd even signed away his legal rights after my son was born, and we have no context, so I don't have any crazy, obsessive exes to worry about. Anyway, coming back to what happened. Kelly wasn't happy about the engagement, but Caleb told her to just suck it up and deal with it, or get the hell out of his house. Kelly's behavior had been getting on his nerves for a while because she was becoming increasingly reckless with her life and turning out to be a total disaster. She'd said that she wanted to drop a year before she started college so she could experience life and actually have something to write about when she finally joins college for her literature degree, but all she's been doing is going to frat parties and coming home drunk. So my husband's patience was wearing thin, and he'd become really edgy around Kelly. When she threw a hissy fit over our engagement and was told to shut up, I thought that she'd finally turn over a new leaf, because she started behaving herself after that. She was still cold towards me but wasn't rude anymore, and that's more than I could expect, and in months leading up to the wedding, she was pretty much on her best behavior. Both Caleb and I believed that she was probably finally getting around to the idea of us being together, but we were proven wrong after the wedding when she demanded that we take her along with us on our honeymoon. If she was 9 years old, we might have considered it, but she wasn't. She was 19 and a full-grown adult woman at this point, so she really had no business demanding that we bring her along on our honeymoon. Caleb made it very clear to her that she couldn't come along, and so she went back to her usual behavior, pouting, sulking, and her usual tricks to get attention, but Caleb was over it, because like I already said, she was 19 and not 9, and she was already pushing him way too much. Even my son was staying back, but mostly because he didn't want to skip school, and I was alright with leaving him back home. My mother had agreed to stay at home because I didn't trust Kelly at home alone with Alex, so my mom would watch over the house. 5 days back, Caleb and I were supposed to leave for a honeymoon, but unfortunately, we're still here because of what Kelly did. We were already at the airport when I received a video message from Kelly where she'd grabbed Alex by the scruff of his neck and was force-feeding him crabs, which he was deathly allergic to. She told us that if we didn't come back home this instant, then she would make sure that Alex finished eating the entire crab on his own. Caleb and I completely freaked out and immediately called 911 and gave them our address. We took the first cab that we could find near the airport and headed back home, and since we don't live too far away from the airport, we were able to reach it within 20 minutes. In the meantime, the cops had already reached and arrested Kelly and were waiting for us to return. 10 minutes after the cops had made their arrest, we reached, and the first thing I did was check on Alex while Caleb dealt with the cops. By the grace of God, he was fine, and had been refusing to even open his mouth while Kelly was trying to feed him, something that I'd missed in the video. He hadn't consumed any of the crab, but I still took him to the hospital nevertheless, while Kelly was taken away by the police. My mother had unfortunately not been able to intervene because Kelly had locked her in the washroom from the outside when she'd been changing, and our doors are too strong to be broken through. She couldn't have broken through the window either because it was too tiny and way above her height anyway. I'm very grateful that nothing happened to my mother and my son, and even more so that the police reached there on time, but now the real problem is Kelly's mom. Kelly's awaiting trial because, of course, Caleb and I pressed charges against her. Alex's life was in danger, and if Kelly had done this just to make sure that we didn't go on our honeymoon, then there was something wrong with her. She was Caleb's daughter, and if he didn't think that she deserved to be forgiven and we could skip the cops, then it was pretty ridiculous for Trisha to expect me, a stranger to her daughter, to forgive her when it was my son that she'd been trying to harm. Trisha called me and tore into me a day after the incident, and I didn't hold back either. She'd gone to the trouble of stalking me and finding my work number, which is how she contacted me. We'd never met before, but she said several cruel things about me as if she did know me. Like apparently I was selfish and I wanted to hog Caleb's attention, which is why I had sent Kelly to prison. It doesn't even make sense, because it's not as if I forced Kelly to do something illegal and rash. She did that herself, and nobody but she was responsible for it. She was 19 and an adult, so she knew what she was doing, and blaming me for her actions was quite pointless. But I, like an idiot, had answered her call and argued with her for half an hour, which just made me more mad. In the end, I told her that both she and her daughter were nothing but failures, and that it was good that Kelly was gonna rot in jail because she totally deserved it. After that, I hung up and blocked the number she'd called me from. I thought that'd be the end of it, but then she called Caleb and told him about our argument. Caleb thinks that I shouldn't have answered her call at all because now she's gonna make a big deal out of this, and since she's even recorded the call, she might be able to use it in court too if the need arises. I said a lot of really horrible things on the phone call and swore a lot while referring to Kelly, so I'm not coming off too well in that call. Caleb thinks they might try to use that phone call in court and has been very stressed about it, but I don't think it's a big deal. We literally have all the evidence we need, which is the video that Kelly had sent me for threatening to hurt Alex. So I tried to tell him that it wasn't a big deal and that he needed to calm down, but he lashed out at me and told me that I needed to take these things more seriously now that the law was involved and this thing would be going to court soon. He thinks that I was way too rash and callous while talking to Trisha and had completely forgotten that they might try to use anything they can against me, so I shouldn't do anything that might give them leverage over us. We got into a big fight over this, and he's still sticking to it because he thinks that I should have just let it slide and ignored the phone call instead of handing her material that could help their case. Now, I get his point that they might use that recording to prove that Kelly was under mental duress or whatever because of me, but I don't think that'll hold up against what she had done. So I think Caleb is overreacting here. I don't want to apologize, but he's been really on edge lately, so I don't know what to do. Am I the a-hole for cursing out my stepdaughter on a phone call with my husband's ex before the stepdaughter's trial? Okay, so I apologize to Caleb for meddling. I really shouldn't have done that because the disgusting woman doesn't intend to use that recording to help her daughter. She actually wants money for herself. Caleb told me that Trisha reached out to him specifically to demand that he pay her $10,000, and for that amount, she'll keep her mouth shut about the phone call and won't help Kelly out. Look, I'm not a fan of Kelly, but I'm grateful that I don't have a mom like Trisha. The woman is willing to screw her own daughter over money, and if that isn't pure evil, then I don't know what is. Anyway, I did apologize to Caleb a couple of days back because I didn't want this to become a whole thing. He's already under a lot of stress because of his own daughter, who's in prison right now, and his ex-wife has been harassing him for money as well. I had no idea about any of it and had just been thinking of myself. I also don't think it's an easy revelation for any parent to deal with when you find out that your kid's a psycho. For instance, if tomorrow I were to find out that my son had tried to hurt someone on purpose, then I don't even know how I would deal with it, because that would probably send me over the edge. So Caleb being able to maintain his composure, even in such circumstances, makes me love and respect him even more. Also, he's standing up for what's right instead of just taking the easy way out and trying to suppress this whole thing because Kelly is his daughter. That takes spine, and it takes an insane amount of courage, which I'm glad that my husband has, because I don't know what most of us would do in a situation like this. He was also sweet enough to forgive me for talking to Trisha on the phone the other day very easily, and even apologized to me for reacting the way that he did. So all is well on that front for now. There's also been a lot of people asking about how Alex is doing. I'm thankful for you guys because it's really sweet of y'all. Alex is doing just fine. He's a little traumatized, but we've started sending him to therapy and hopefully he'll get over this with time. I have a brave little boy and an even braver husband, so we'll be just fine as long as I have them. Hey y'all, so my in-laws are involved now, and that's bad news because my in-laws hate me. I hadn't mentioned them earlier because they have been no contact with Caleb and me ever since we started dating. They didn't like the fact that Caleb was with someone new and wasn't devoting his entire life to being a father like they wanted him to. Like Kelly, they were also of the opinion that he should have just gone back to Trisha because it was just one mistake that she'd made and she deserved to be forgiven. They thought that a divorce had been an overreaction and had kept in touch with Trisha even after the divorce. When they realized that my relationship with Caleb wasn't that easily breakable, they made him choose between them and me, and he chose me, so they cut ties with him at that point. We were happy without them because Caleb always told me that they were the super controlling, orthodox, crazy parents who cared more about what they wanted than Caleb's happiness. In fact, they'd been the ones to push Caleb to get married the first time because they thought Trisha was the best choice for him. She was devoutly religious at that point, so that was just a bonus. When Caleb told them about the divorce and her infidelity, they actually told him that he shouldn't judge her and should instead be pissed at the casting director who, quote-unquote, led her astray. They'd wanted Caleb to forgive Trisha and go back to her, and when he didn't do that, the first cracks in his relationship with his parents began to appear. Then it completely fell through when he told them that he wasn't gonna break up with me. And now that they're back, they're just as outrageous and selfish as they were. They just showed up out of the blue the other day, and before I could even say anything, they'd barged in. I had a day off of work and was spending it with Alex because he was down with the flu. So when they showed up, I instantly called Caleb and told him what was going on. My in-laws refused to acknowledge my presence and didn't even look at me the entire time that they were there, until Caleb came back home. Then the yelling and insanity began with everyone fledging accusations at each other. My in-laws told Caleb that he was failing as a father and that if he didn't want to go down in history as the worst father ever, then he needed to go bail out his daughter instead of going up against her in court. They believed that what Kelly had done was just a silly little prank and nothing to get so worked up over, which was crazy. I tried to tell them that they were being insane, but his mother shushed me and told me to not meddle because this was a conversation just for quote-unquote family. So I left the room in a huff then, because I didn't even want to be around them. I was waiting in Alex's room while he slept through it all because of the medicines, and while I was waiting for it to blow over, I heard my mother-in-law shouting loudly about how badly Caleb was screwing up here by choosing that S-word over his own daughter. I lost my cool then because I'm not the kind of woman who's just gonna take that crap and be okay with it. So I went back out into the living room with my phone in hand and 911 already dialed out when I told them that if they didn't get the hell out of our house, then I would send them exactly where their dear granddaughter was, and then they wouldn't miss her so much. They tried to fight back, but Caleb told them that he'd had enough, and he didn't want to talk to them anymore, so they finally left. We could hear them swearing at us all the way back to their car, but it didn't affect me at all, because they were leaving, and that is what mattered the most. I don't know what exactly they thought was going to happen, that they just show up out of the blue and demand that we free Kelly and we would just agree to it. What a bunch of idiots. Caleb and I had to literally turn on some calming music so that we could get ourselves back to normal because the stress of the past couple of days really came to a head today. I'd personally never seen Caleb so angry before. He was literally all red in the face and his veins looked ready to pop. We got lucky that Alex's meds made him a real heavy sleeper because he was able to sleep through the entire fight and didn't wake up even once while the shouting match was going on. I've been able to keep him away from the stress of all the family drama so far, and I intend on doing so after this as well. He's just a kid. He doesn't need to know what's going on with the family, especially this family where everyone is literally psychotic and deranged, except probably me and Caleb. Technically, it's not even my family. I've just married a man who's involved with a lot of crazy people. It's a wonder he hasn't snapped yet, because I probably would have if I had been forced to live with people like these for so many years. Honestly, I can't even blame Kelly for what she did, because she's probably crazy since she'd idolized these folks. Okay, hey y'all, so I've decided to get a restraining order against all the three of the psychos, my in-laws and Trisha. Things have come to that point where we can no longer pretend that they're just harmless and won't do anything but just try and fight with us. We have to head to court for Kelly's trial in a few hours, and I still can't sleep because of what happened this evening. A couple of days had passed since my in-laws visit, and Trisha had also been MIA, so we didn't know what to expect. We really didn't think that they'd do anything the day before the trial was supposed to begin, but we were mistaken. Around 7 in the evening, we heard some sloganeering from right outside our house, and when I looked through the blinds, It was my in-laws and Trisha carrying signs that said, "Free Kelly," because of course she was innocent to them. They were shrieking as loudly as they could, and I could see some of my other neighbors come out to check out the scene as well. When Trisha spotted me peeking out through the blinds, she started pointing at me and screamed about how I was the one responsible for what was happening to Kelly. Then she took out her phone and, I assume, went live on social media while talking about how her daughter had been unfairly imprisoned and could be facing time because I'd put her under such stress that she snapped and made some stupid video to prank us. She announced on her live video that Caleb and I were just mad that Kelly's prank had forced them to stay back and we couldn't go on our honeymoon, so we'd punish her by sending her to jail, which literally wasn't true. Had that been the case, she wouldn't have been arrested at all, but there was literally proof of her trying to feed crabs to my son. It was not a joke, and we had not made it all up, but she was saying it with such conviction that I knew people would begin to question it soon enough. Caleb called the cops and they were taken away, but we couldn't press charges because technically they were just around our property, but not on it, so we had no case against them. It was frustrating as hell, but at least we had proof of them lying on the internet about us, so we could sue for defamation as well if we wanted, but first and foremost, we were going to use the footage from her live to get a restraining order against all of them. I haven't been able to fall asleep because I was already so stressed about tomorrow, and now my stress and anxiety have just gone through the roof. It's just too much for one person to deal with, and it feels unfair that Caleb and I have to deal with so much. Not just us, even Alex has gone through so much. Just because Caleb and I want to be together. That's what's making everyone so mad, and I can't imagine how hateful and miserable as a person one has to be to want to destroy other people's lives just because they can't stand that they're happy together. It's just sickening. Kelly's going to jail for 3 years, and there's nothing that anyone can do now to prevent that from happening, so I guess it's me, 1, and Kelly, Trisha, and my in-laws, 0. If it sounds like I'm bragging, it's because I am. The verdict was announced yesterday, and I haven't stopped celebrating since. I'm not doing it in front of Caleb though, because it's his daughter who went to jail, so it's kind of a weird situation for him. He wasn't happy, but he did say that this was what should have happened, and she hopes that she comes out as a better person. I don't think that she's capable of it, but I don't want to dash his hopes. We also managed to get a restraining order against all the 3 of them, the in-laws and Trisha, so they weren't allowed to sit in on the hearings because their presence wasn't exactly required either. I'm thankful that we were able to get through this phase as a family, and now it's just going to me, Caleb, and Alex. The only 3 people who make this house feel like a home. Alright guys, that was it for today's story. Thank you very much for listening. Go ahead and smash that like button right now and subscribe for more stories. Thanks again guys. We will be seeing you in the next one.